Ha'oli makahiki ho, aloha mai kako to Curtain Call, a weekly program of reviews, previews, interviews, and features of and or with the great art and artists on Maui and beyond. I'm Paul James Brown. It's time to take a look back at the amazing work our theaters and theater artists gave to us in 2023. What was the best? Who cares? This year, I'm not going to have a competition. I'm just going to give standing ovation awards to the work. It was such an extraordinary year. The depth and breadth of our artists seems to have no boundaries. I mean, really, how do you compare Francis Cain's work and Matthew Spangler's exceptional tour de force one-person play Albatross? Quote, Mr. Cain holds forth for a little less than 80 uninterrupted spellbinding minutes from his opening offstage howl to his closing look back at the audience as he exits center stage. He takes us along on the journey of Captain Jolly Roger's ship. We experience his pain, incarceration, the excitement of battle, the hopelessness of being at sea, both literally and figuratively, and the possibility of redemption through penance. His creation of the Mariner is a virtuosic acting performance, unquote. To Paul Jackal's breathtaking King Henry II and Mappa's Lion in Winter, and his gender-bending trio of performances in Pro Art's Pride and Prejudice. Quote, Mr. Jackal's three characters are so well done, he morphs from one character to the other seamlessly, and he has created three completely distinct characters. Mr. Collins is a veritable wimp who speaks in redundancies. His Miss Bingley is a true member of the bourgeoisie, full of put-downs for her lessers and praise for her betters. Then there is Mr. Wickham, the dashing young lieutenant. Mr. Jackal is a consummate professional. As he demonstrated in Bent last season, he has no limits, unquote. Or Kirsten Otterson's virtual one-woman show in Birthday Candles. Quote, Ms. Otterson is on stage for the entire 100 minutes of the show. Everything in the show revolves around her. There are very few scenes where actors speak to each other. Most of the time, she is involved in the dialogue. She takes the audience on a journey of 90 birthdays. She graciously accepts the same unwanted gifts year after year. She tries to make the best of a difficult marriage. She celebrates arrivals and mourns passings all the time, preparing cake batter to pop into the oven on stage so we have the illusion she is actually baking it before our eyes. Ms. Otterson ages 90 years to 107 years old without makeup. She does this brilliantly and convincingly through her physicality, vocal pacing, and attitude. Wisdom is imparted, pain expressed, betrayal endured, laid out in the frame of Ernestine's life. Ms. Otterson's work is beyond description. I cannot think of another play except for one-person plays that ask for this kind of endurance, stamina, concentration, and outstanding memorization from an actor, and she does it all while preparing a cake without a cookbook. To Peggy Harmon's Herculean Queen in Lion in Winter, quote, there are transcendent theatrical moments throughout this masterpiece of mendacity and several laughs as well. Mr. Jackal and Ms. Harmon seduce each other, pull the rug out from each other, express their love for each other. Their scenes crackle with sparks only great actors can create, and make no mistake, this is great work that will take your breath away. There are moments of confrontation between these two where the audience is on the edge of their seats. Their repartee, whether they are fighting, lying, or loving, is what great theater is all about, unquote. What about Lena Kruger, reprising her standing ovation performance as Annie Wilkes in Misery on the small stage of Pro Arts, then totally killing it in Broads on Broadway, and finally virtually running away with the reluctant elf as Mrs. Claus? Doesn't there need to be a special standing ovation award for her for every time she trods the boards? How can we forget Ally Shore's septuagenarian body in a teenager in Pro Arts Kimberly Akimbo? Quote, Ms. Shore consistently distinguishes herself in everything she does, from acting to designing to building and creating. She does it all with the highest quality of excellence. But this role is one of the most difficult female acting roles ever written. It calls for a female adult actor to be a 16-year-old again, while inhabiting a senior citizen's body and dealing with a hypochondriac mother, alcoholic amateur father, criminal aunt, a rare fictional illness. So there are no models to imitate, and first puppy love. The playwright piles it on, and one or two of these tasks would be like trying to spacewalk without oxygen, but to have all of them taxes a reviewer's vocabulary to find an appropriate analogy. Ms. Shore gives us a Kimberly who is maternal. Her scenes feeding her mother are priceless, confrontational. She doesn't put up with any of her father's BS and regularly reads him the riot act. Naive, she is easily deceived by her aunt and adventurously innocent, as her puppy love with Jeff demonstrates. It is a beautiful, truthfully nuanced performance by an actor who consistently gives her all in everything she does, and she can be assured her hope expressed in the thankfully printed program of doing justice to the role was beyond a Supreme Court decision. Bravissima, unquote. A special standing ovation award needs to go to Micah Oberg for stepping into a major role as Jeff in Kimberly Akimbo on 1 week's notice. Quote, his Jeff was charming, vulnerable, and devoted to Kimberly. This character was written for Mr. Oberg. He is offbeat, brilliant, without being narcissistic, fun, lovable, and truthful, and this with less than a week of rehearsals. Every moment he is on stage is a delight, unquote. How about the mother-daughter team of Liana and Amaya Locke in Mappa's Wings or Cages? Quote, the one that got me to use that tissue was the scene between real-life mother and daughter Liana and Amaya Locke. It was a Star is Born moment to watch this child of not only one of our finest singers on this island, but also actors, do her work with such maturity, power, joy, and excellence. She is so at home on the stage. The connection was magical, and their duet on Ben Pesek's and Justin Paul's Million Dreams from the musical The Greatest Show was perfect. I look forward with great anticipation to watching many more shows starring Ms. Amaya, unquote. There are precious few roles for 6'4", 75-year-olds, but when they come along, I'm happy to step away from the camera and get before a live audience. I had that chance this past summer when Lisa Teichner decided I was right for Shylock and Maui on Stage's production of Something's Rotten. This is what James Nevius, who graciously stepped in for me to review it, said, quote, one of the reasons it sounds so good is the impeccable performances by the show's leads, David Ross McCulley, Shane Borg, and Robert E. Wills, along with Leah Krieg as Nick's wife Bea, Tessa Chin as Portia, and Thalen Nicolau as Shakespeare. Every single one of them at one point or another steals the show, and Miss Chin and Mr. Borg's Act 1 duet, I Love the Way, is particularly lovely. Ms. Chin, making her Maui on Stage debut, lends a graceful air to her Portia. Ms. Krieg's Bea also has a great first act number, Right Hand Man, that brings down the house. But then again, most of these numbers bring down the house. I don't remember the last time I was at a musical on Maui where the audience started clapping along during the first song and then stood for ovations during the show. This musical is that much fun. As Nick and Nigel Bottom, Mr. McCulley and Mr. Borg have a natural rapport, and both of their performances are uniformly excellent. McCulley is terrific throughout, but his second act numbers, when trying his best to conceive of a new musical, are real standouts, as is his palpable, visceral hatred of Shakespeare. Mr. Borg, meanwhile, just gets better every time I see him, and his embodiment of Nigel Bottom acting, singing, and pratfalling, quote, is, dare I say it, the tops. Bob Wills' Nostradamus is so close to being over the top that you wonder sometimes if he's going to teeter over the brink. But he's a consummate professional and pulls himself back every time, which is why I liked his performance on Maui more than I liked the original one on Broadway. Mr. Nicolau, returning to the Maui stage for the first time in over a decade, perfectly embodies the venal, conniving Shakespeare. It's a role that turns our conventional ideas of the bard upside down, and Nicolau clearly revels in making his Shakespeare the musical's bad boy, unquote. These are a few of the highlights of a spectacular year in theater. I'm sure you have yours as well. I look forward to what 2024 will bring us. Well, that's the Standing Ovation Awards for 2023. Stay tuned for what our amazing artists will be presenting in 2024. I'll be there to let you know. Mahalo for joining me. I'm Paul James Brown. Maui strong. Ahui ho.